We need to talk about this because this is really important, guys. I should intro it. So, folks, there's this thing called the financial system of the United States. It's actually pretty important for how things get done and how, you know, billions upon billions of dollars get paid out and paid into the system. It's actually kind of this thing that makes the entire economic heart of our country continue to beat. It is a pretty important thing, and that's why we have to talk about this new executive order because this one's a doozy, folks. It is titled Protecting America's Bank Account Against Fraud, Waste, and Abuse. And again, anytime you're hearing this administration talk about fraud, waste, and abuse, they are talking about ways to screw you, a citizen, over. They're talking about ways of cutting like Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Like that's fundamentally their value proposition when they invoke those phrases. Um, and what they are trying to do with this executive order, and they may have the ability to actually see this through, which is not good, um, is essentially they want to centralize our financial system, the financial heart of our government. And currently, how it works right now is that it's fairly convoluted, and that the main thing that kind of keeps it all together are these small, largely unpoliticized portions of it, like the Treasury payment system. These systems that are highly guarded and like highly classified and keep this system running. It is what ensures the paychecks go out on time. It's what ensures your tax returns go out. It's what ensures all of this coming out gets to you in a timely manner. It's what makes sure those social security checks keep coming out. And what they want to do is they want to take all of these disparate payment systems, the VA's payment system, the Social Security's payment system, the Treasury's payment system, and centralize all of them into just the Treasury. And they want to centralize not just the Treasury system and the payment system, but they also want to centralize all of the data. And one of the reasons this should be particularly concerning for everyone is that your data in the US government is typically what's called siloed, which is that, your social security number, for instance, is not top secret information. It's not, a state secret in a sense that it needs protection in that way, but it is still considered your private data and thus is siloed in like different areas of the government that are, need to know. A good example of this would be the IRS payment system. Your data in that is siloed off from the rest of the government, where like someone from a different department in the government can't just be like, ah, yes, I want blank's tax returns. And then they get blank's tax returns. They can't do that actually. And so what they want to do is basically to centralize all of that data, make it accessible to other branches of the government, and then, well, frankly, to what end is an open question, but I think it's fairly obvious at this point that what they want to do is they want to feed it into Elon Musk's AI algorithms. They want to feed it into the large language model he has concocted and deployed within the US government. And what should be very concerning about that is that this includes information about your health, your finances, your associations. It contains a ton of information about you. And one of the things that would be incorporated into this is also the do not pay list. What is the do not pay list? That is a list of people, organizations, and even governments at times that the US government says, do not pay them. Do not give them money. And what this would basically allow them to do is compile an enemies list. Uh, and they could even have it created by an AI algorithm. People who are likely to oppose the US government, likely to oppose Donald Trump in particular, likely to oppose Elon Musk, even. I hope it's rapidly becoming clear why this would be of paramount importance to oppose. Now, one of the things about this, my understanding, and granted, I am not a legal expert by any means, but my understanding from just different folks I've been reading up to try and get up to speed on this particular executive order is that they may be able to centralize a payment system under the Treasury. Data is a different story. The data might not be centralizable in that way. Um, and so as a result, that leaves an avenue for legal challenges to this. Specifically because if your data, which you have a right to privacy over, is then made accessible broadly across the US government, well, then that suddenly opens up some avenues to, sue the government and maintain that siloing of information at the very least. Um, so that is one of the possible ways in the short term that this could be checked. Um, but this is something to be aware of and to know that this is a very real and very dangerous road to go down, especially as this is happening in parallel with the different executive orders that have been targeting individual law firms, trying to get these major law firms to essentially back off of fighting the Trump administration, to agree not to take work that would contradict the Donald Trump administration. It is scary and it has a chilling effect. The goal here is to have all of this centralized data and to have no lawyers left willing to stand up and challenge the Trump administration in court. You know, that's happening alongside the Trump administration pushing for impeachment of federal judges. You know, Mo Mike Johnson, the other day floated the idea that, Congress should dissolve the federal courts. And I need to say very clearly, if we see something like that happen, we have entered a very different style and moment of organizing. Now, I do not believe that Mike Johnson can actually do that. I don't think he has the votes for it. But that being said, if we do hit a point and you see Congress dissolves the federal court system, that would be one of those flags for, hey, we need to start organizing in very different ways because holding signs is not going to be enough at that point. Um, That is the entirety of Article 3. Yeah, but they do not give it they don't care. They don't care about the Constitution anymore. One of the topics that I want to get to tomorrow, and I know I've been saying that for a while, is the deportation flights to El Salvador. And that's going to be a really long segment for us to go over. but it's really important to see kind of how this is playing out in the courts. And I want to make sure you guys understand that, like, to a certain degree, what the Trump administration has been doing up to this point is kind of a malicious compliance with the courts. But this El Salvador deportation case could be the one where they go, actually, we're going to deny court orders. What are you going to do? And that's scary. That's scary as hell. It's yeah, it's all very, very, very dangerous stuff. I thought we did that already. Everything blends together. We got up to that point, Bastion, and then like the courts kind of backed down a little bit. You know, like it we got right up to the edge, stepped over it briefly, and then the Trump administration retreated. This might be the case where they step over the line and then just keep going. It is just so hard to keep up, which is why I've been taking my time to talk about this El Salvador case the right way. I even reached out to some of the lawyers that appear on Legal Eagle to see if they'd be interested in coming on the show, but haven't gotten responses yet. Um, we'll see. Fingers crossed. But yeah, all of this is really bad, and I want to. If you're wondering, like, hey, like, if we do get to the end of this, if we get to the end of this, what can we actually do to perhaps, fight this? What can we perhaps do to like ensure that this doesn't happen again? That like a madman doesn't get elected as president and can then just hijack our financial system unilaterally, right? And I was looking through this, and Nathan Tankus, um, on Blue Sky, elevated this man, Rohan Gray, um, a couple weeks ago. But Rohan Gray, in response to this White House order, resurfaced his paper, and he wrote a draft paper, and it hasn't been um, peer reviewed yet or anything like that. But I do think it kind of gets at a potential way forward that is interesting. And he put out this piece, digitizing the fisc, which is basically, one of the big questions of our time is, you know, clearly digitizing currency is kind of the direction everything is going in. So how do we do that in a way that like maintains the safety of our currency? How do we do that in a way that isn't going to lead to abuse? People just typing into keyboards to materialize money out of thin air, stuff like that. How do we actually make this so that a power hungry tyrant can't just come in and seize it? Which it good questions, honestly. Um, and this paper deals with this question in great detail. It's not complete, but I do think it is worth reading in particular. And we'll jump to the conclusion here, but I'll drop a link in the chat here. Here you go. Here you go. Here you go. Our currency is already digitizing, CF. Um, let's see. This is the conclusion of Rohan Gray's article. And he starts with a quote by Abraham Lincoln. The dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate to the stormy present. As our case is new, we must think anew and act anew. We must disenthrall ourselves, and then we shall save our country. The next quote is from Christine Lagarde, and it reads, "Technology will change, and so must we. Lest we remain the last leaf on a dead branch, the others having decided to fly away with the wind." And I'll read the conclusion here. The United States is at the crux of another major historical juncture. President Trump's vision for the unitary executive fisc uniquely threatens the constitutional separation of powers by combining the assertion of total executive control with the even more extreme assertion of near total fiscal supremacy. But the roots of the problem go well beyond the immediate risks, or even Trump. Rather, they lay in Congress's chronic failure to adequately maintain and upgrade its fiscal systems and administrative infrastructure to meet the needs and pressures of the rapidly evolving legal, economic, social, and technological order. This neglect has, in turn, led to excessive intragovernmental entanglement, procedural bottlenecks, and conflicting goals and directives at multiple phases of the fiscal process. In addition to their immediate practical and broader constitutional implications, Trump's actions have revealed a glaring fiscal blind spot at the heart of the contemporary dollar digitization debate. Public payment systems are the beating heart of the economy, and their smooth operation is of utmost constitutional and political importance, and yet they remain persistently overlooked and largely ignored in discussions over digital dollar design. The three main fiscal technologies this article proposes as part of the NDFR, the Congressional Fiscal Record, Congress's Treasury ATM, and the Federated Federal Ledger together empower Congress to reclaim and defend its political and practical fiscal powers from accelerating encroachment by the imperial presidency. By adopting a centralized legislature, decentralized approach, it pushes budgetary control down to local agencies, unbundles and streamlines fiscal operations, and modernizes the legislative budget process to allow Congress final oversight over the day to day appropriations administration and financing process. This blueprint is still incomplete and at this stage primarily provocative. Further fine grained legislative and institutional analysis will be required before practically commencing anything like such a comprehensive reform program. Nevertheless, as U.S. policymakers inch ever closer to the formal adoption of digital public money of some kind, they can no longer afford to ignore fiscal administrative infrastructure or the constitutional dimension of the digital dollar design. Reconstructing the constitutional separation of fiscal powers and reinforcing it against future presidential attack requires more than mere incremental reforms and defensive resistance. Nothing less than a whole scale reimagining of the public spending process and underlying technological architecture is required. Put differently, we must digitize the fisc. So that's what we got to do. We have to protect the separation of powers and to some degree return like these financial powers to Congress. A lot of it has been offloaded to the federal government, and it's just clear that that has been a colossal mistake that has primed our financial systems to be taken over, to be co-opted. Isn't USDT the crypto version of the dollar? I don't know enough about USDT to know if that is the official crypto dollar. I genuinely don't know. But like honestly, I'm here to I'm here to say I do think at the very least in broad strokes, Rohan Gray is onto something here. We do need to kind of disperse our fiscal system a bit as we modernize it and make it more secure and less prone to a tyrant coming in and co-opting it. All right. Time to put someone in timeout. Here we go. It's time to fight technocratic thinking with technocratic thinking. If you think using a computer is technocratic, like I don't know what to say to you. Yes, let's just go back to the gold standard. Let's just why not just return to Monkey? Like stop it. Stop it. Use critical thinking for like 5 seconds. Is it USDC, Coder Joe? I don't know. I there's like a stable coin name like that is US dollar coin or something like that. I don't know. That just gave me an aneurysm, right? Anyway, I want to go back to rum as currency. I think we should go to I think we need to go back to rye stone currency. That's what I think. I think the Yap Island rye stones were the real way to go. Okay? That was real money right there. You know? Goddamn rye stones. 10 out of 10 currency right here. Look at that. Look at that massive lad. Rye stones, baby. Get some people to just carve gigantic stone circles. That's goddamn currency right there. Matt Yahoo, whenever I think of currency issues, I always think of the rye stones. That's money? Yeah, the Yap Islands used rye stones as currency for hundreds of years. And in a lot of ways, it predicted like a lot of elements of kind of abstract financial thinking, largely because historically you didn't actually have to physically give a rye stone to another person. Instead, you could just like have a written or verbal agreement about who owned the rye stone and what its value was. And then like you could just trade that, written or verbal ownership with other people. It's a really great and interesting idea of like how abstract financial systems kind of can be constructed. There's a really famous example of a rye stone that was lost at sea, that people continued to trade after the ship went down and the rye stone was lost. So like it's it's really fascinating stuff. I recommend you guys read up on rye stone lore. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. But we need to adapt. We live in a digitizing age, um, where cryptocurrency is going to continue to try and destabilize, our primary currency. And we need to grow and adapt as a result. Like the whole idea of modernizing and strengthening our financial systems is so that things like what are happening now cannot happen again in the future. China's so ahead of us. Eh, marginally. In some respects, perhaps. Anyway, something to be aware of, and I do recommend reading the Rowan Gray piece. It's good stuff. It has a lot of interesting ideas in there. I'm not entirely convinced by all of them, but I think that this kind of bold reimagining of our financial system is kind of what we need at the moment. So, that's all I'll have to say about that.